Marble gleamed while duct tape squeaked. In Hart Row's marble lobby, a scuffed 13-year-old stepped up and didn't lower his eyes. "I just want to check my balance," Noah Reyes said. Across the marble, Victor Rowe smiled the way polished men do when they sense an easy laugh. He moved like the floor belonged to him, cufflinks catching chandelier light, confidence drifting ahead like perfume. "A balance," he said, pitching his voice to the leather chairs as much as the boy. "Try the branch with the pens on chains, kid." Laughter rose, soft and safe for people who would never be the punchline. Noah did not move. He eased a black card from a wrinkled envelope and placed it on the counter as if it could break. The teller hesitated, eyes flicking from duct-taped shoes to Victor's grin, waiting for permission disguised as policy. Victor took the card himself, enjoying the little theater of gatekeeping. "All right," he said, strolling to a terminal. "Let's confirm your fortune." Hart Row's machines were glass and steel with a discreet glow that whispered old money learned new tricks. Victor tapped in credentials, glancing once at the boy long enough to label this charity, not service. The screen accepted the card, pulsed, populated. Victor's smile stayed in place because it always did. Because habit can look like certainty. Then his eyes focused. The name at the top wasn't Noah's. It was Evelyn Hart. His laugh cut off like a mic pulled from a hand. For a heartbeat, he didn't see the lobby, or the clients, or the shining shoes. He saw a cramped back office, file boxes stacked like teeth, and a woman with gray at her temples who taught him to read risk and people. She kept a bowl of peppermint candies and a spine of iron. He heard her voice, patient and unamused, telling a younger Victor that wealth is a tool and a test. He remembered the funeral, the portraits, the way he said founder, mentor, North Star into microphones he liked too much. And now her name glowed above a boy in duct-taped shoes. "Is there a problem?" the client with the pearls asked, laughter dying halfway to a smirk. Victor's throat worked twice before sound arrived. "No," he managed, but the word was thin. He angled the monitor away from the room, away from the marble and the eyes, as if a name could be hidden by furniture. "Where did you get this card?" he asked without looking at Noah. "Mailbox," Noah said. "It came with a letter I didn't understand." Victor stared at the letters again, black against pale blue, so ordinary it almost hid the weight. Evelyn Hart, the dead woman who still sat in meetings because her rules outlived her. She had built this place patient and principled, and lately he had made it fast and sharp. He had not expected the test to look like a kid with a patch sewn onto a backpack. "Mr. Rowe," the teller ventured, "should I call security?" "No," he said, and for the first time all morning, the word held something like, "Please give me a second." He looked at Noah, really looked, and found a boy standing his ground, because standing down had never worked. "We need a private room," Victor said, eyes still on the name like a hand on his shoulder. How is her name tied to his card? And what exactly did that make the boy standing under all this marble? The answer would not fit the lobby today. Before the name on the screen, there was a morning that scraped instead of started. Noah woke to heat pressing the paint off the windows and a yellow notice curling on the door. "Final shut-off," it said. Like a verdict, he could not afford to appeal. The refrigerator hummed bravely, and the clock stuttered toward a late morning. His bus pass would not accept. He rinsed his face with water that ran rust-thin and found the envelope again on the table where he kept not opening it. Hart and Rowe logo, crisp as a suit, his name printed straight, the card weighty inside, like a dare. It had arrived months ago, with a letter he read and reread, without understanding. Words like steward and legacy, and present this card at the main branch. He had shoved it under a math book and told himself it was either a prank or a trap, both too expensive for him to spring. But last night, his mom folded her hands and said, "We will figure it out." And he heard how tired that promise sounded on a mouth that had run out of places to cut. She was between jobs again, the kind that pay in aching feet and short checks, and he was taller now, with a voice that cracked when he said, "I got it." He meant the notice, the overdue fines, the greasy landlord with keys like teeth. He meant the weight she carried, as if a person could hold back a tide with elbows. So he took the envelope and the bus pass with the wrong date and walked to the stop anyway, because sometimes rejection is faster than waiting. The driver looked at the pass, looked at Noah, and shook his head with a practiced apology that did not change the rule. He walked. Heat rose from the pavement like a second sun, and the city layered its sounds on him until he could feel the weight of other people's urgencies. He passed a bodega that fronted ice with flowers, a pawn shop that glittered like it was kind, and a window full of shoes that pretended feet do not get tired. His own shoes complained in the language of tape and grit. He kept one hand in his pocket around the envelope, and the other free for doors and quick apologies. At a red light, he read the words again through the paper as if they might leak clarity. Legacy Blue, a phrase that meant nothing on his block and everything on brochures. Do not lose this card. The letter had warned in easy paragraphs that trusted the reader to know the world behind them. Present at the main branch for verification, it said. And he had laughed, because verification was a word that wore a tie. He did not own a tie. The bank looked far on a map and farther in mind, the kind of building you cross the street to avoid, in case it notices you. He went anyway. By the time the glass towers collected the sky around him, his shirt had stuck to his back and his throat tasted like coins. He paused outside the rotating doors and practiced the sentence that would not beg. I just want to check my balance, he said to the reflection of a boy who looked like he had borrowed himself. Then he pulled the door, and the building gave him noon that felt like midnight. Cold air rose from the floor and swallowed the noise he had carried in. The lobby shone with yes, framed to look like no. Marble, gold leaf, quiet carpet, a chandelier that dripped light like patience. People moved like appointments, crisp and scented, eyes sliding over him the way rain skates off a waxed hood. A guard looked at his shoes and then at the ceiling, which felt like a small mercy. Noah did the polite math of survival, the half smile that says, I am not a problem, and the straight shoulders that say, I am not prey. He clutched the envelope inside his pocket the way some people carry lucky coins or verses, except his luck was taped and smudged and had a return address. He thought of his mom at the kitchen table, counting shifts on a calendar and drawing lines through days that were supposed to be rest. She had squeezed his hand and said, keep your head up, because doors open easier for people who look like they belong. And sometimes the trick is believing it first. Belonging did not feel like this, but he lifted his chin anyway. He stepped toward the counter where a teller wore a smile with rules sewn into the corners. She glanced past him to the man by the gold model of the bank, the one who stood like a logo come to life. Noah drew a breath that tasted like the lobby and set the envelope down before his voice learned to shake. The sentence he practiced waited on his tongue, simple as hunger, sharp still today. His practiced sentence found air before doubt could catch it. I just want to check my balance, Noah said. The words were small enough to carry and heavy enough to tilt the room. The teller's smile paused, the calculator of policy running behind her eyes. From the gold model of the bank, Victor drifted over like the marble rolled in his favor. A balance, he echoed. Bright for the gallery, not the boy. We do those here, usually for clients. His cufflinks flashed, his teeth flashed. The lobby turned to listen. Noah kept his shoulders square. The envelope felt damp in his palm. He set it down gently as if sound could break his chance. The teller's gaze flicked to Victor, seeking permission disguised as procedure. Let's not waste anyone's time, Victor said, voice pitched to Carrie. Try the branch with the pens on chains, kid. A few soft laughs answered, the safe kind that travels in country clubs and elevators. A woman in pearls half covered her mouth and fully watched. I just want to check my balance, Noah repeated, slower, like someone lifting a weight with care. He made the words plain. He made them unashamed. Victor's eyes slid over the duct tape, the frayed backpack strap, the shirt that had been ironed by a hand with no iron. Security, he said, not loudly, just enough to wake two suits by the column. They flowed forward, calm, professional, a warning dressed as help. The teller tried for a middle road. Sir, if he has identification and a card. Her voice dwindled as Victor's smile widened. Of course, let's be diligent, Victor said, performing courtesy the way some people perform magic. May I see what you have there? He picked up the envelope before Noah could answer. His fingers brushed cardboard like it might stain, then slid out a black card that did not belong to this boy. In his equation, he held it up between two fingers for the room to see. Interesting. Murmurs gathered like birds. Someone murmured tick-tock under their breath. A phone lifted, then dropped when a guard's eyes found it. The lobby became a quiet arena. Velvet ropes made of stairs. Where did you get this? Victor asked, and now the brightness was gone. Mailbox. Noah said. It came with a letter. I did not understand the letter. Victor's eyebrows lifted in a way that invited laughter again. Not understanding letters can be a problem in a bank, he said. The joke landed. Noah did not move. Hunger has a way of canceling shame. Show me your ID, Victor said. Noah handed over a school card, edges bent, photo too small for the boy he had grown into. Victor looked, then looked through it. Noah Reyes, he read aloud, gifting the room a name to file with its story. Sir, the teller tried again. There is a process. He is a minor. We should set expectations, Victor said smoothly. Our time is valuable. The bank serves clients. He turned so the leather chairs could see his profile. We all worked for our seats here. Noah heard we and understood what it excluded. My mom worked too, he said, and the words reached past the barrier and settled where people keep their first beliefs about work. A man in a navy suit shifted just once. Security hovered a respectful arm's length away, palms open, posture gentle. The message was clear. We can make this quiet, or we can make this quick. Noah's throat felt tight. He swallowed and found the sentence that kept him upright. Please check my balance. Victor placed the card on the counter like a judge placing a gavel. One moment, he said, installing patience into his voice like software. He strolled to a terminal, not hurrying, letting the moment ripen for the watchers. He typed with theatrical precision, glancing back at the boy long enough to write this off as a brief diversion. The lobby settled into its roles. Pearls whispered to gold tie. A courier pretended to read a plaque. A receptionist adjusted a vase that did not need adjusting. Everyone waited for the story they recognized, the lesson, the escort to the door, the bank preserving its surface. Noah waited too, though his story did not fit their shelf. His stomach chewed air. He thought about shut-off notices and a landlord who smiled without kindness. He thought about beans in the cabinet and a younger sister who asked if water could be dinner. He kept his eyes on the counter because looking at faces could drown a person. Victor tapped, approved, authenticated, enjoyed being the gate. He cut a glance to the guards, as if to say, get ready to be useful. He toggled the card reader, slid the card, watched the system blink alive. Heart Row's interface appeared in discrete blues, glass reflecting glass. Behind him, the lobby breathed in. You understand there are consequences for misrepresentation, Victor said without turning. You understand there are consequences for being wrong about people, Noah said, surprising himself. A second laugh tried to climb out of the room and did not make it. Victor's mouth curled. Consequences are why I'm standing here and not out there, he said, eyes on his kingdom. He hit enter. The machine thought. Noah's pulse did too. Does he even have an account? Pearls whispered. He has a story. Navy suit answered before he could stop himself. The teller heard it, tucked it away, and straightened her spine by a centimeter. The screen loaded a preliminary prompt. Victor leaned in, ready to close the book. A name field waited at the top, empty, expectant, a seam that would either hold or split. If this is stolen, Victor said conversationally, we will have to involve the police. That would be unfortunate for you. He wanted agreement. The room offered silence. Noah stared at the edge of the counter until it steadied. The guards shifted weight. The receptionist decided the flowers were perfect after all. Somewhere, a printer murmured. Outside, sirens remembered someone else. Inside, a boy stood his ground because backing up had never paid. Victor's fingers hovered over the keys, stretching the second thin. He liked control most when other people could see him hold it. He began to type something that would narrow, not open. Enough, said a voice that did not ask to be heard. It carried calm without apology, the kind that comes from knowing policy better than performance. The room turned before Victor did. The teller's shoulders dropped a fraction, like a rope eased. Noah looked up from the edge of the counter to the source of the word. The guard stepped back half a shoe, instinct recognizing authority that did not need volume. Victor's smile did not move, but the muscles behind it prepared for a different game. Whoever had spoken did not belong to his show. The terminal waited with its empty field and its quiet demand. We will follow procedure, the voice said. And procedure in this building means looking before deciding. Victor straightened until the gold model behind him felt a little smaller. Noah exhaled once, shallow, like someone tasting an unfamiliar kindness before trusting it. Grace Okafor stepped into the hush she'd made. She didn't raise her voice. She carried procedure. Mid-50s, Flat shoes polished, badge clipped where no cufflink could outshine it. She nodded to the teller, to security, then to Victor last. Mr. Rowe, we will follow the legacy protocol. No adjudication on the floor. She reached for the card with steady fingers. May I? She didn't wait for a yes from anyone but the boy. Noah gave a small nod. Thank you, she said, as if he were the client everyone else pretended he wasn't. She tilted the card under the chandelier, catching the faint band of microprint. Legacy Blue, she said softly. Pre-2009 series. Founder-directed accounts. You don't see many of these. Victor's smile held. This is irregular, Grace. A child. A suspicious card. A lobby full of clients. Which is why we will not perform for them, she replied. Cassandra, please log chain of custody. Start an internal verification session. And print the 14C form. Gentlemen, she added to the guards, stand down but remain available. Phones away, please. The room obeyed her the way rooms obey people who know what they're doing. Grace looked at Noah again. Do you have the letter that came with this? He tapped his backpack and slid out a folded page, edges softened by worry. She did not take it yet. Let's move to a private room, she said. Mr. Rowe, dual officer oversight is required on founder matters. You can observe. Victor gestured grandly. Of course, privacy for the process, he said, trying to keep the stage. But his eyes tracked the card like it might subtract him. They crossed from carpeted theater into a corridor that quieted the shoes of people who mattered. Conference room 3 breathed cool air and soft light. The table was wood that wanted to be touched. Outside, the lobby murmured like a closed mouth. Please sit, Grace told Noah. And the chair received him like a fact. She placed the card on the table between them. Not as bait, not as evidence, but as a thing to be understood. Mr. Rowe, sign in on the console for co-auth. Cassandra will join us with the packet. Victor keyed in his credentials, posture collected. This will be quick, he said. Grace did not answer. She studied the card again. Watermark crest, the faint diagonal thread, the tiny initials EH embedded near the chip if you knew to look. She aligned the edge with the ruler 0 and recorded the serial in neat numbers. Tell me your name for the record, she said. Noah Reyes, he answered. Age, 13. Guardian. My mom, he said. And then lower. If she's still guardian, we got a notice about. He stopped. Grace nodded once, the kind that holds a space without prying. She opened the letter with clean fingers and read enough to know it needed more careful reading later. Formal language, simple intention. Present this card at the main branch. Identity will be verified. Dignity will be extended. She exhaled slowly. Founder language, she said. Plain words, iron spine. Victor leaned forward. What exactly is this, Grace? A vanity legacy? Some ceremonial scholarship the kid misread? We have reputational risk. We have obligations, she said. Legacy Blue requires 2 managers, a closed room, and a clean chain. It requires we look before we talk. It requires we remember why this bank exists. She looked at the logo on the wall, then back at Noah. Our founder established certain accounts personally. If this is one, we will know in minutes. Cassandra entered with a slim folder and the 14C, eyes alert. She set a glass of water near Noah without making it a kindness to be repaid. Grace slid the card into the reader, waited for the low chime, and entered the sequence she could do in the dark. The screen asked for co-auth. Victor obliged, the machine acknowledging him with a polite blink. Grace rested a hand near the reader. If system opens a legacy profile, we follow its instructions, she said. Noah watched the cursor blink. If this is founder-directed, she thought, how did a boy from Heat become its steward? The console accepted the co-auth, and the glass-walled room went quieter, as if the building itself leaned closer. Grace selected the legacy protocol, entered the serial she had just written down, and watched the cursor blink like a metronome for patience. The system responded with a line she did not see often. Legacy Blue Series detected, elevating to founder desk. Victor's posture stayed relaxed because posture was his last defense. He folded his hands and pretended not to read every word. Cassandra stood just inside the door, pen poised, eyes moving with the screen. A second window unfurled, crisp and spare, the way Evelyn Hart had insisted her teams keep important things. At the top, in bold that refused decoration, it read, Evelyn Hart, Legacy Trust, Primary Student, Steward, Noah Reyes. The room changed temperature for Victor, even if the thermostat did not. Earlier, he had played judge in marble. Now the bank spoke in the founder's voice, and it did not include him. His laugh, perfect for lobbies, had nowhere to sit in here. Grace's chin tipped by a millimeter. She let the title land before she scrolled. Beneath the header sat the framework. Principal, $2,350,000. Index, conservative growth with donor-directed replenishment potential. Disbursements, education, tuition, fees, materials, housing and utilities, food security, health and counseling, transportation, contingency microgrants for family stability, disbursement cadence, needs-based, verified quarterly, oversight, dual officer, steward access view only until age 18, mentor assignment required, founder directives, treat steward with dignity at all times, verify identity without spectacle, offer mentorship and resources, not suspicion, protect privacy, resolve immediate harm before process. Victor let out a breath he could not arrange into amusement. Dignity, mentorship, privacy, Evelyn's commandments, the ones he had diluted into mottos on a wall. Grace turned the screen slightly so Noah could see his name set in letters he had only worn on homework and library cards. He felt it like a coat that finally fit. He did not touch the table. He did not dare. "What does steward mean?" he asked, the word formal and strange in his mouth. "It means you are the person this trust exists to serve and to grow," Grace said. "It means you are not a prop in anyone's lobby. It means you have decisions to make and help to receive." Victor cleared his throat, finding a place to put his voice. There must be an error. A child cannot be the primary on a founder trust. "The error would be us," Grace answered softly, "if we ignore what we are seeing." She scrolled again. Additional notes populated, timestamps from years ago. Origin, founder selection, steward identified following annex incident 0819. Mother, R. Reyes, night shift contractor, risk assessment, character observation strong, reliability demonstrated, acceptance of help initially low, action, establish legacy trust, attach artifact package, notify upon steward's 13th birthday via mailer. Cassandra's pen paused. Artifact package, she repeated under her breath. Grace clicked the small caret. A simple instruction expanded. Vault item EHLL 2079 to Noah Reyes and to whomever receives him at my bank. Open in presence of 2 officers and steward. Record reading. Do not summarize. Read in full. Victor's eyes found the words he could not argue with. The initials he had once carried like a compass. He remembered Evelyn's habit of writing instructions, as if she might not be there to defend them. He had called it old-fashioned. He had been wrong. "We will need to retrieve the envelope," Grace said. "Cassandra, please call archives and initiate a level L delivery. Note participants, Okafor, Rowe, Reyes." Cassandra stepped out to make the call, then returned to continue the chain. Noah sat very still, as if movement might break the picture. Grace tapped the identity tab. "Let's complete verification," she said. "Not as a test, but as a bridge. Full name, Noah Daniel Reyes. Date of birth." He gave it. Current address. He recited the number, the building, the apartment that squeezed 3 lives into 2 rooms. Guardian. "My mom, Rosa Reyes. If they don't." If nothing changed since last month, Grace entered each answer, cross-checking the data that had already been preloaded in a way that told her the founder had done homework long before this day. The system asked for a second ID. Noah did not have one. Grace glanced at Victor. "We can accept school ID plus guardian verification in founder cases," Victor said automatically. Training surfacing before ego. He was startled by his own voice choosing policy over performance. A soft chime acknowledged the inputs. Steward identity status. Verified pending guardian signature. Founder directive. Provide immediate stabilization support if needed. Do not wait for full onboarding to remediate urgent harm. Grace looked at Noah. "Is anything urgent at home?" she asked. He held her gaze. "A shut-off notice," he said. "Bus pass expired. Rent next week." He hated the list. He said it anyway. She keyed 3 provisional disbursements within the narrow bounds the protocol allowed. Utilities catch-up, transit stipend, grocery credit loaded to a temporary card. Each entry generated a small confirmation, impersonal and kind. Victor watched the totals tick. Tiny compared to the principal, enormous compared to whatever he had thought would happen when the boy walked in. In the lobby, he had enjoyed gravity. Here, it owned him. Noah glanced at his name again, beside the founder's, as if proximity might vanish if it be blinked. "Why?" he asked, the question no screen could answer. "Why me?" Grace did not pretend to know. "The vault envelope will help us understand," she said. "But the record shows your mother worked nights in our annex. There was an incident. Evelyn met you, or she saw enough to choose. She was careful with her choices." Victor bristled at the idea that something this significant had happened in his building without him knowing. He leaned toward the text. Annex Incident 0819. "There were evacuation reports that day," he said slowly. "A fire alarm fault. False alarm, we thought. We will read the artifact and stop guessing," Grace said. She returned to the directives and read them aloud, not just for the record, but for the room. "Treat the steward with dignity. Verify identity without spectacle. Offer mentorship and resources, not suspicion. Protect privacy. Resolve immediate harm before process." It sounded like a rebuke carved in warm wood. Victor did not trust his voice. In the glass, he could see a reflection of himself beside a boy and the name of the woman who had hired him. He did not like the comparison. He doubted he would for a while. A knock. Cassandra opened the door for a courier in a gray jacket carrying a slim fireproof sleeve. Inside lay a cream envelope sealed with a thin blue ribbon and a small embossed EH in the wax. The courier asked for signatures. Grace and Victor signed. Cassandra witnessed. Noah watched as if the letters might shift in transit. Grace set the envelope on the table and rested her fingertips next to it without touching. "Mr. Rowe, do you wish to continue as co-officer?" she asked. The question offered him a choice between posture and principle. "Yes," he said, and the word wasn't performance this time. He sat back, palms finely flat, as if bracing for a road he had not planned to walk. Noah's stomach reminded him he had eaten nothing since yesterday afternoon. He pushed the feeling down and tried to memorize the weight of the moment instead. His name beside hers, a door opening where doors had mostly closed. Grace looked at him, not with pity, with recognition. "The first disbursements will post within the hour," she said. "We'll schedule a full intake this week. You will not have to carry this alone." He nodded, and some unseen muscle unclenched. He glanced at the envelope again, at the neat wax that kept answers from spilling. "If she chose me," he said softly, "then she knew us. She saw something." Joe. Grace considered the boy, the man across from him, the name on the screen anchoring them both. "Evelyn saw people," she said. "She put that into the building, even when some of us forgot how to read it." Victor absorbed the US without flinching. He reached out and steadied the envelope when it rocked a fraction from the air system's whisper. His hand withdrew quickly, as if he had touched a memory. "Open it," Noah said, then checked himself. "Is that allowed?" "It is required," Grace answered, "but we do it carefully. We read it all as instructed. We let it say what it came to say." Cassandra closed the door fully. The lobby, the marble, the performance fell away, until only the table, the screen, and the ribbon existed. Grace slid a letter opener under the wax and paused. "Some things deserve silence right before they begin," she said. The wax gave with a small sound. The envelope yielded a second, heavier sheet, marked in a hand both elegant and firm. "To Noah Reyes," it began, "and to whomever receives him at my bank." Grace looked up once, meeting Noah's eyes, then Victor's. The story that would answer why sat waiting in her hands, and the room held its breath to hear it. Grace unfolded the sheet and read, her voice steady enough to carry care without ceremony. "To Noah Reyes, and to whomever receives him at my bank. I am Evelyn Hart, founder of this institution, and I'm writing for a day I will not see. If this letter is in your hands, then a child is in our lobby who does not fit the marble's assumption. Receive him without performance. Verify what you must, but do not mistake verification for worth. Worth is not a costume. It is a record of how one meets the world. Noah, I met your mother on a night when the building forgot its people. A false alarm emptied the annex into the street. I had stayed late to review a credit portfolio and to argue with myself about a policy I feared was drifting from our values. On the stairwell, my heart fluttered and my breath thinned in a way that age makes unremarkable until it isn't. Your mother, Rosa Reyes, was working the night shift. She took my arm without fuss, sat me on a step, counted with me, and said we would both breathe like stubborn women until the elevator returned to its senses. When I tried to tip her for what I could not price, she smiled and said, "Respect is enough." I was not raised to let a sentence like that pass. My mother cleaned train cars. I learned balance sheets after I learned to scrub. We did not confuse polish with character at our kitchen table. Your mother finished her shift that night and then came back to check whether the alarm had interrupted anyone's pay. She told me she had a son who waited for her with homework and questions about constellations. I asked her name, wrote it down, and asked if there was anything she needed. She said, "Respect is enough," and went back to work. Over the next months, I observed, because that is what bankers ought to do before they decide. I saw you once, Noah, in the annex lobby, seated on a milk crate with a library book propped on your knees. You offered your seat to a guard with a limp. I watched you return a wallet without looking inside it. I watched you fix a jammed vending machine with a paperclip and then hand the snack to someone else. These are not metrics on a dashboard, but they are the reasons I built this bank. Somewhere between quarterly targets and gala speeches, it is easy for a place like ours to drift into thinking it exists to congratulate itself. It does not. It exists to take care of the people who take care of it. When the culture forgets, I leave notes in stone and paper. Consider this one of them. I am establishing a trust for your benefit and for the benefit of your household, Noah. I have seeded it with principle sufficient to remove the pressure that keeps children from sleeping and mothers from breathing. It is not charity. It is an investment in a future I am certain you will repay in ways I cannot predict. You will be the steward, not the subject. That means you will learn to read statements, to ask questions, to say no when something does not honor your mother's sentence. Respect is enough. It is also the minimum. To the officer reading this, do not humiliate him to prove you are careful. Be careful by being competent. Verify identity privately. Offer mentorship formally. Resolve urgent harm before process finishes its paperwork. If you must choose between optics and a boy's bus pass, choose the pass and fix the optics later. If you find yourself tempted to perform, remember that our lobby echoes, and that echoes are not records. If Victor Rowe is in the room, I ask him to remember who hired him. Victor, you are ambitious and quick, which is useful in a business that rewards speed. But you learned here because someone slowed down for you. Keep slowing down. If I am gone, keep the promises I made out loud and the ones I wrote down so the building would not forget. If you are reading this and you feel your pride flare because a child has become a mirror, sit with that feeling until it teaches you something. To the steward, this trust will pay for the unglamorous things that make a life possible. Rent, utilities, transit, school supplies, braces, groceries that are not counted in tens. It will also pay for counseling if grief or fear whispers lies. You will not be handed a key to a universe where nothing costs. You will be handed a map to a place where costs do not end you. Ask for help. People who tell you help is weakness have always had help. I have included directives that must be followed. Dual officer oversight, privacy protections, regular check-ins with a mentor who hears more than he speaks. The mentor should explain compounding, not as magic, but as patience with numbers. He should take you to the archives and show you the ledgers from 1959, where the margins hold notes about widows and laundries and first apartments. Those notes built this bank more than any merger ever did. There will be people who tell you that money changes everything. It changes some things, yes. It buys time and choices and quiet. It does not make anyone kinder. It does not make anyone smarter. It does not make anyone clean. You will meet kindness and unkindness on both sides of a lobby. Remember your mother's sentence when you are tempted to measure yourself by someone else's shoes. Respect is enough. Start there, and then decide what more you want to be. To whomever receives Noah at my bank, you are not guarding a vault today. You are guarding a value. Do not let the building teach you contempt for the people who polish its floors. If you are in management, pay them first. If you are in security, keep phones down and heads up. If you are at a desk, learn your policies so you can use them to protect, not parade. If culture has drifted by the time this is opened, drag it back. I am old enough to have failed pleasantly and succeeded badly. The former taught me humility. The latter taught me consequences. The work is to keep choosing people over posture, until posture learns some manners. If you do this for Noah, you will do it for others, and the balance you will check at the end of your days will not fit on a screen. If you are wondering why I chose this particular child and family, it is because your mother asked nothing of me. She would not ask of herself. It is because I saw you carry a backpack that outweighed your years without complaint, and still notice who needed the milk crate more. It is because I owe debts to women like Rosa Reyes that cannot be repaid directly anymore. This is interest, paid forward. I sign below with the understanding that my name means nothing if it cannot protect and lift the names beside it. If this letter is read, let it also be enacted, respectfully and with a practical hope, Evelyn Hart, dated and notarized. Grace stopped. The room held the warmth of voice on the page and the cold of what had happened an hour ago in the lobby. Noah looked at his hands, then at the signature he had only seen on walls, and whispered, "She met my mom." Grace nodded once. Victor stared at the closing line as if it were addressed to him alone, which in a way it was. Pride moved in his chest, restless, asking to be fed. So did another thing he had starved. Which would he choose to feed? Grace set the letter down and closed her notebook. "We're not finished," she said. "Founder directives include immediate stabilization. We need to see where this lands." Victor hesitated, then nodded. The elevator returned them to the lobby, where Marble remembered the morning's cold performance. Outside, heat wrapped the city again, taxi horns knitting a rough lace over the sidewalk. Victor's car idled at the curb like a visiting monarch. Grace waved it off and chose the train. On the platform, Noah stood between them, backpack pressed to his side. A busker's trumpet argued with a rattle of tracks. A child somewhere laughed the way fountains sound. Victor adjusted his sleeve, then stopped adjusting it. When the doors slid open, the car offered hard seats and soft eyes. A woman shifted her bag so Noah could sit. He offered it to an older man. The man shook his head. "Respect, mijo. Keep it." Their stop rose into a block where paint peeled and music did not. The building wore a fire escape like an old scar. In the vestibule, someone had taped a handwritten list of birthdays. Next to it hung a notice about heat regulations with half the ink missing. Noah took the stairs 2 at a time and paused on 3 to hold the door for a neighbor balancing a laundry basket and a toddler. "Mrs. Alvarez," he said. "I can get the door." "Gracias," she puffed, eyes flicking to Grace's badge and Victor's suit and then returning to Noah's face. Inside the Reyes apartment, the air held the scent of rice and lemon cleaner. 2 rooms, 1 window, a table that had learned 1,000 elbows. On the counter, the yellow shut-off notice waited with the patience of a threat. A drip ticked in the sink, rhythmic as worry. Noah dropped his backpack, rolled up his sleeves, and reached under the cabinet for the wrench he kept. He tightened the brittle collar until the drip learned a new song. A small girl barreled in with a math worksheet and hair escaping its braid. "Mia," Noah said, and the room made room for his smile. "This is Miss Okafor. And Mr. Rowe, say hello." Mia studied them, decided, and waved. "Did you get the pass?" she asked. "Not yet," he said. "But soon." The word soon felt sturdier than yesterday. Rosa Reyes arrived with the day's heat carried in on her skin. Uniform polo damp at the collar, eyes reading the room in one sweep. She greeted Grace first, then Victor, then the question the shut-off notice asked. "We're fine," she said automatically. Then quieter, "We will be fine." Grace introduced herself as an account manager, not a savior. "Your son came to the bank today," she said. "He brought a card connected to a legacy trust established by our founder. We verified identity. Immediate assistance is authorized. Groceries, transit, utilities." Rosa's jaw tightened. "We don't take handouts. We accept partnership," Grace said. "Respect is enough," Rosa replied, and the sentence threaded the air like a blessing sewn twice. Neighbors filtered in the way community does, pretending to return a borrowed cup and staying to check if anything else needed returning. Mr. Singh offered a ride for tomorrow's interview if the bus ran late. Mrs. Alvarez left a bag of tomatoes because her cousin's produce truck had extras. A teenager showed Noah the bent axle on a stroller and handed him a hex key. He fixed it on the stoop while Mia stenciled stars on the margin of her worksheet. When a delivery driver phoned to say he had 3 cases of bottled water for the block because the taps tasted like pennies today, Noah helped to carry them upstairs. Victor took it in, all of it. The cracked tile and bright laughter, the old lace curtains and new homework. The pride that refused pity, and the give that never stopped. He reached for his checkbook and found Grace's look waiting. Not that, she said. Not a photo and a pen. Systems, not strokes. He let the leather cover fall shut and listened. Grace sat with Rosa at the table and asked questions that did not turn into lecture. What day is rent due? What happens if the utility cuts service at noon? Who watches Mia between shifts? What would make the daily ache less sharp? Rosa answered without apology. A reliable babysitter fund. A transit pass that refills before it empties. Utilities paid on time without fees. Respect at work when she asks for the schedule posted in Spanish. A landlord who fixes the hallway lights so women are not walking through shadows at night. Grace typed, nodded, and forwarded a verification to release the first disbursements, explaining each step in sentences that refused to condescend. She handed Noah a temporary grocery card and a transit voucher, then turned to Mia. "What's your favorite breakfast?" "Pancakes," Mia said immediately. "With strawberries if they're on sale." "Strawberries will be on sale tomorrow," Grace said. Noah blinked at that sentence more than once. A pair of men in collared shirts appeared at the door, canvassing for a non-profit that took pictures with donations. Rosa declined gracefully. "We already have what we need," she said, and turned back to stir the rice. The room hummed with the quiet competence of women who have made meals out of not enough. The bank's conference table flashed through Victor's mind like a mirror held up to a different kind of polish. He felt the old shape of performance tug at his sleeve and brushed it off. On the stoop, dusk gathered and held. A car backfired. Someone laughed. Someone sang off-key. Mia practiced times tables. Noah returned a wrench to Mr. Ortiz down the hall. Grace stood beside the notices in the vestibule and photographed them, not for a post, for a file labeled Fix. Victor ran a thumb over the shut-off notice crease and finally folded it into his pocket, not as a souvenir, but as an indictment. "Thank you for coming," Rosa said at the door, which meant thank you for seeing. "We will handle our part. Handle yours too." "We intend to," Grace said. The word we included the badge and the suit and the boy with the wrench. On the walk back to the train, Victor asked what partnership would actually look like. Grace answered in nouns, not adjectives. Payroll policies, vendor accounts that remove stigma, a hardship fund with rules, not whims, translation on every floor, mentors who show up monthly, wages for the cleaners that make second jobs optional. The words were not glamorous. They were expensive. "Expensive," Victor said. "Necessary," Grace replied. He looked back at the lit windows, a checkerboard of lives that kept each other from falling through. "Tomorrow," he said, "I convene the board." And then, remembering the letter's sentence, he corrected himself. "Tonight, I start writing what we should have done already." The city exhaled around them, trains arriving and leaving, and the balance they would need to check next would not be on a screen. Back at Hart Row, the boardroom held the kind of quiet that money buys when it wants to listen to itself. Framed deals stared down at the table. Water beaded on crystal as if sweating on behalf of men who did not. Victor stood at the head, the founder's letter in a folder he could feel through the leather, and let the chairs fill. Grace sat 2 seats down, notes organized, photos printed of stairwell notices, and the taped birthdays list in the vestibule. Cassandra managed the packets, sliding copies so no one could claim they had not seen what mattered. The chair cleared his throat. "You called an emergency session, Victor. Please explain." "Grace first," Victor said. "Facts before sentiment." She rose and delivered field notes without varnish. A household facing utilities shut off within 24 hours. A child's transit access lapsed. A building with safety lighting out. Vendor practices that reward speed over stability. A culture gap between policy and practice. She quoted founder directives line by line. Verify identity without spectacle. Resolve immediate harm before process. Offer mentorship and resources, not suspicion. She placed a photo of the envelope on the table, blue ribbon intact, and read the paragraph addressed to whomever receives him at my bank. A director in a navy tie snorted softly, touching, also irrelevant to quarterly guidance. "We cannot build a compensation regime on sentimentality," someone else worried aloud about precedent. "If we anoint one family, we invite 1,000 grievances. Investors will punish drift, and drift dressed as virtue is still drift." Victor let them empty themselves. Then he spoke, steady. "We are not anointing anyone. We are correcting course. Here is the plan. Service wages move to a living floor across all cleaners, security, and maintenance, whether employed directly or through contractors. Vendor contracts will require the same floor, plus paid leave and health care. A hardship fund will be established, rules-based, administered by a cross-functional committee, funded automatically at 1% of quarterly profit with emergency authority to disperse within 24 hours. We will create the Founders Steward Program to support worker families, tutoring, transit, food security, translation, mentoring, scholarships, and predictable scheduling advocacy. We will train managers. We will publish the results. The CFO lifted a palm. Cost. Our model shows a margin compression of 70 basis points in year 1, perhaps more if vendor bids escalate. Turnover savings might offset, but that's speculative. The street will see softness. He glanced toward the window, as if analysts were already waiting there. Then start with me, Victor said. I will commit my entire cash bonus this year to seed the hardship fund and the program. I will ask the executive team to accept a 10% cut to variable comp to cover the wage floor transition. We will report metrics monthly: turnover, absenteeism, client retention, service incidents, and time to fill. If we are wrong, we will know quickly. If we are right, value will show up where it always does, in people staying, serving, selling, and speaking well of us. The general counsel tapped her pen. Legal exposures. We must avoid creating a new protected class by accident. The program must be neutral, criteria-driven, accessible across departments and vendors. Privacy must be strict. We cannot parade recipients, and the lobby incident requires remediation. It will have it, Victor said. I will address it publicly. No spin. An apology to the steward and to our employees for modeling contempt in a room that teaches. I will name what happened and the changes we are making. If there is blowback, it lands on me. The head of communications nodded carefully. We can craft a statement that centers founder values, announces the wage floor, and frames the fund as operational resilience. We can humanize without identifying. We can offer a media walkthrough next week. No walkthroughs, Grace said, and the room looked at her. Tours turn people into backdrops. Publish the policy. Show the numbers. Let families live in peace. The chair steepled his fingers. Why now, Victor? The founder's letter has existed since before some of us joined. You have had months, years, to nudge culture. Why the cliff? Because I humiliated a child in our lobby today, Victor said, and the sentence fit the room like a verdict. I laughed at him to perform for people with no stake in his life. Then I saw Evelyn's name above his, and I remembered who hired me and why. We are who we are in public, not only in memos. Silence took a seat. A director who had never liked Victor's speed spoke. What if the market reads this as weakness? Another added, what if others line up with stories, and we cannot say no? Victor answered both with the same sentence. Then we will build criteria and a queue, and we will say no where the program does not fit and yes where it does. And we will explain ourselves with respect, not press releases. Grace laid out the operational path. 30 days for wage floor implementation with vendor amendments executed concurrently. 90 for benefits enrollment. Hardship fund live within 2 weeks. Founders Steward Program pilots at 3 sites. Mentorship roster drawn from managers who volunteer and pass training. Quarterly reports posted on the internet and summarized externally. Vote, the chair said at last. Hands rose, some slow, some resigned, some hopeful. 2 directors withheld, promising to draft a dissent. The motion carried. Afterward, Victor did not celebrate. He drafted the apology with communications and removed polish until the words matched the harm. He asked Grace to co-sign the internal note announcing the changes. She did, adding a line from the letter. If you must choose between optics and a boy's bus pass, choose the pass. By midnight, contracts sat in legal's inbox. HR had calendar holds for manager trainings, and facilities had a work order to replace the hallway light in Noah's building because someone finally called the landlord with leverage. The press would wake hungry. Analysts would model basis points. Employees would decide whether the tone had altered for real or for a news cycle. Victor stood in the lobby alone and looked up at the chandelier that loved to be looked at. Short-term margin or long-term mission, he said under his breath. Spin or accountability, comfort or courage. He touched the banister Evelyn had chosen because wood warms a hand faster than stone. Morning would tally its numbers. Headlines would try their words. The balance they had chosen would meet the balance they reported, and the city would decide which one mattered. By winter, the lobby had learned a new echo. Laughter still floated there, but it no longer pointed at people. It pointed at jokes, at relief, at recognition. In the reports Grace compiled, the numbers moved like shoulders relaxing. Entry-level turnover down by a third. Service incidents down. Client retention up 2 points. Time to fill vacancies cut in half. Vendors that balked at wage floors adjusted. Those that refused were replaced, quietly, with firms that read the memo in the room. Headlines shifted gradually, then all at once. Soft became smart when a business column ran charts beside a photo of a mop and a smile. Shareholders who had grumbled about Drift found that Drift carried them somewhere profitable. The internal message board, once a place to request toner, became a public ledger of thanks. A night guard posting about braces paid on time. A cleaner posting about finally sleeping 8 hours between shifts. The Founders Steward program stopped being a press line and began being a calendar. Tutors met kids in conference rooms on Saturdays. Weekend meal boxes went out discreetly. Barcodes instead of photos. Microgrants covered security deposits, bus passes, and certification exams. 2 employees' children started college with laptops and nerves, and a counseling stipend waited for the days when nerves won. Noah's apartment felt different in simple ways. The shutoff notice had been replaced by a receipt that said paid. The bus pass beeped green every time. He ate breakfast that did not involve choosing which person in the room would skip. Algebra slid from C to A-. He joined a robotics club and built a small bot that could follow a line and carry a pencil. He coached Mia through long division and listened to her read until her voice sank into sleep. Grace visited monthly as a mentor who asked questions before making suggestions. She showed him how to read the trust's dashboard and how to ask why when a number looked friendly but hid a cost. She never used the word deserving. She used the word steward until it sounded like a job. In the spring, Noah stood in Victor's office with a notebook, the skyline pressed against the glass like an audience that couldn't get a seat. "I have an idea," he said. "A student-led grant committee. Let stewards and their classmates review micro-grant requests for after-school needs. We explain the rules, we keep it small, we vote. And I want you to mentor, not manage. 1 hour a month. No suits if you can help it." Victor looked at the boy who had rewritten his lobby without touching the marble. Outcomes had replaced optics. Applause came from break rooms and cafeterias instead of ballrooms. He nodded. "Mentor, not manage," he said. "Deal." On Founders Day, the bank planned a town hall with numbers on a screen and names in their own voices. The old applause would be there if invited. The new respect would arrive either way. The lesson was forming, solid as wood and simple as a sentence Noah already knew. The question was how wide they were willing to open the door tomorrow. Grace drafted the agenda, Noah drafted the questions, and Victor drafted the apology he still owed. The doors would open. Who would walk through with them? Noah stepped through the revolving door, a clean shirt and the same backbone. The lobby felt brighter, or maybe his eyes did. He went to the counter, placed his card, and let the sentence do its work. "I'd like to check my balance." Grace looked up and smiled, not at the card, at him. "Welcome back, Noah." She tapped the keys with the ease of someone who knew procedure was a bridge, not a wall. The screen greeted his name without drama. Behind them, a guard nodded and stood easy. No phones rose. No laughter tried to gather. Victor walked from the hallway and stopped a respectful distance away. "I owe you something," he said. "I was wrong in this room. I performed cruelty where I should have practiced care. I'm sorry." Noah held his gaze and gave a small, careful nod. "Apology accepted," he said, and then added, "Keep doing the work." Grace turned the monitor slightly. "Your balances are healthy. Your next disbursement posts Friday. Tutoring hours approved. The robotics grant cleared." She lowered her voice. "And a note from archives. For your collection." She slid a photocopy of a line from the letter across the counter. "Wealth is not a number, but a neighbor." Noah read it twice, then folded it into his wallet next to his bus pass. He looked around the room that had once hosted his humiliation and now held a quieter kind of win. Marbles still gleamed. So did people. He stepped aside so an older woman could approach with a question about her account. He said, "After you," and meant it. Grace waved him toward the chairs. "Sit a minute, Noah. The student committee meets at 3. Victor's coming as a mentor." "No suits," Noah said. "No suits," Victor answered, already loosening his tie. "If you're hearing this story, check the names behind the jobs you passed today. Say them. Start today. Ask what respect looks like in the places you lead, the counters you stand behind, the rooms where you clap. Share this with someone who thinks policies and kindness can't sit at the same table. Follow for part 2, where we open the steward program and show how any team, any manager, any neighbor can build dignity into daily leadership. The balance you check next might not be on a screen, but it will change what every screen shows.